Welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you're watching on our YouTube channel, Tar Heel Illustrated, I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner. And joining me, as he so often does, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. Andrew, got some big Carolina, I should say, not us, but Carolina got some big news on Sunday afternoon as they earned an Orange Bowl berth, the first major bowl berth appearance for this program since the 1949 season. And they'll be taking on number 5 Texas A&M down in Miami on January 2nd. That's an 8 p.m. kickoff. AJ, a lot of things to kind of talk about. We've been speculating that Carolina was going to ultimately earn an Orange Bowl berth if Notre Dame was to lose to Clemson. That ended up happening last night in maybe a little bit of a wider margin than some of us expected. But Carolina, number 5 Texas A&M, Orange Bowl berth. How big is it for this program, not only for this year's team, but kind of moving forward and where this direction of this program under Mac Brown Part 2 wants to go? What are the kind of the ramifications for this?
Well, before the ramifications, I just think that you need to recognize how significant it is that North Carolina is going to the Orange Bowl.
Yeah.
This program, we've talked about this on our podcast. I've written about it for years. When I used to have my radio shows, we used to talk about it. Mm-hmm. This program has bumped its head on the ceiling a lot in the last 7 decades, and it doesn't ever break through. It always finds a way to lose. Whether it's the getting routed in the second half at Oklahoma in 80 or 81, whatever that was, or blowing a lead in Charlottesville in 96, or the great opportunity with FSU coming in the next year, number 3 versus number 4, and the offense couldn't move the ball to save its life. This program has never cracked the ceiling. I'm not saying they cracked the ceiling now, because the dynamics of college football are a little bit different, but they had to win a game a week and a half ago in Miami, and they did it. And there aren't many times in the program's history where with something significantly nationally meaningful dangled in front of them where they actually did that. And not only did they do it, but they did it in such emphatic fashion that they've generated a different buzz about them. Notre Dame got a lot of cachet for shutting down Carolina's offense at the time, but tenfold after Carolina went to Miami and annihilated the Hurricanes. So I'm glad that you said earned it, because they did earn it. They're not backing into this thing. They're 8-3, but they have a couple tough losses, but they're pretty good 8-3. They're certainly a team that's getting better. We see that on both sides of the ball. So this is significant that they have earned a spot in the Orange Bowl. It's not that, well, someone has to go. And there have been a few times in the last 15 years since the bowls have kind of changed up a little bit, where sometimes a team slides into a major bowl that you kind of think, okay, but not this one. I guarantee you Jimbo Fisher and his staff at Texas A&M know that this is going to be a challenge for them.
Oh, yeah.
And it will be a challenge for them. So I think when you look at it, yes, this team earned it. From a historical perspective, it's the first time in 71 years. They've gotten close.
That's a long time.
And we had a chance to talk to Mac a little while ago, and I asked him a question about how personally rewarding it is for him, because his 96 and 97 teams on the field had clubs that should play in a game like this.
Yeah. But
the layout, the construction was different, the way the big bowls were at the time. And certainly the 97 team that went 11-1 ultimately, because they clobbered Virginia Tech in the Gator Bowl. They certainly laid a claim to being in a game like this. They should have been in a game like this. That was arguably the best defense in the country. They were clearly a top 5 team, and they didn't end up in a bowl like this. And so I asked him, I said, did you kind of have a personal moment when you think back 23 years ago, your last team should have been in this game, but they weren't. And now 25 months into your resurrection project, you've got a club in that game. And he said, no, he's not going to get all mushy or anything like that. I know he'll have that moment at some point, but he said he wanted the players to sit there and watch it on TV today and see their name pop up there and listen to the national people talk about them, about the relevance of what they've achieved. And I think a big part of the story also is the historical relevance of it, not just what these kids have done in 25 months, which we'll get into here in a minute, but the connection to Choo-Choo Justice. It was his senior year. They went to the Cotton Bowl. That was literally an end of an era. He finished runner-up in the Heisman twice, They lost that game to Rice in the Cotton Bowl, and they haven't been back to a game like this since then. So there are a dozen storylines as we're a dozen days away from this game.
AJ, we've talked a lot just this whole year really about process. It's something we bring up a ton in podcasts. Yeah. It's something you've written about a lot when it comes to, this football program under Mack Brown and the just over 2 years that he's been back with him coming back in November 2018. What does it say? You already kind of touched on it a little bit, but what does it kind of say about the job Mack Brown and this staff have done when you consider where Carolina was before Mack got there under Larry Fedora and how those last couple of years went and where they are now? And like I said, just over that 2 years, what does that say just kind of about the job that they've been able to do?
We love to say snapshot at THI, don't we?
We do. We even had a podcast, the THI Snapshot, at one point.
Absolutely. Take a snapshot time. Hang it up over here, and then take a snapshot down here and kind of juxtapose a little bit there, right? In the 27 games before Mack was hired, North Carolina was 6-21. The only Power 5 wins were inexplicably over Pitt. Narduzzi couldn't beat Fedora.
Yeah, he just
couldn't. That. He still got his job. Larry did a lot of good things. He did. I just want to have some fun there for a moment because in the grand scheme of things, they were the only Power 5 team Carolina could beat. 3 of those wins were over FCS teams. The other FBS was Old Dominion in transition. Okay, so they weren't getting it done. These kids that were on those teams that went 6-21 that are still in the program now, they've gone 11-3 in their last 14 games. Yeah. And the last time they took the field, they routed the number 10 team in the country on the road. So the process continues because they've never been to this kind of a game before. They've never been on this stage before. They haven't played a top 5 team from the conference, the SEC, before. So this is still part of their process that will lead into next year. But I do think that, as we said before the Miami game, we got to see results. At some point, the project has to show the product. And the product is a team that actually earned their way to an Orange Bowl and a team that can now say, look, we're 11-3 in the last 14. This program is light years away from 6-21 before Mack got hired. They had that little period in the middle where they were figuring things out, and they're still figuring things out, but they had to shift everything onto the right plane. And they did, and now they're taking off. And this game presents this program an unbelievable opportunity.
Oh, yeah,
as
absolutely.
Far as closing, they could finish in the top 10, something UNC hasn't done since 97. They have a chance to catapult themselves into next season, where I think if they win, they'll start in the top 10 next season, which means that you go into the campaign with a completely different mission than what they would. I think most Carolina fans went into this season hoping they could get to this point. Next year, they would go into the season believing that they should at the very least get to this point. And I think that in the end, that's what this game will mean for them. But Jacob, when they run out of the tunnel at Hard Rock Stadium, which is where they played 10 days ago, that alone will be a victory for this program. You can't snap your finger and have everything happen overnight. It's a process. You got to use that word. And Mack likes to use days, but it is. And maybe they lose to A&M, but they will have been on that stage and they will know what that stage is like. So the next time they're there, they'll be better prepared for it. Just like after going through Notre Dame the day after Thanksgiving, they were much more prepared for Miami 2 weeks later. So the process is still ongoing, but they're also in the achievement and product phase right now.
Exactly. AJ, last thing I want to touch on before we wrap this thing up. We were talking about it a little bit off camera, but I really like this matchup. I like the fact that, before COVID and everything hit, Carolina was supposed to start off the season, with that Central Florida game and then playing Auburn in the Georgia Dome, playing a really good SEC team. I know Auburn didn't have quite the year that they've had in the past this year, but overall they were going to get that SEC test early in the season. Now they're getting that SEC test against a team that I know for a fact from some of the things I've seen in the media right now and on Twitter are feeling a little bit hard done by. They're not in the Final Four and playing in the college football playoff right now. So what do you think about this matchup, AJ? Because for me, it's just you're playing an SEC team. You're playing a team that's been very, very good this season. I think their only loss came to Florida. And so they've been a really good team. And getting to play against the likes of, got Jimbo Fisher there, a guy that was at Florida State, but just overall, it's just an exciting matchup to me to see how Carolina matches up against a really talented SEC opponent like Texas A&M.
Well, I think there's actually a lot of similarities. And Jimbo was on
Mhm.
the press conference Zoom right after Mac was, and he said that they're not going to go into this thing flat because they're let down because they didn't get into the playoff, and they're not going to go in there angry because they didn't get in. He said for them it's part of their process too.
Yeah,
Their
exactly.
next step.
Mhm.
Texas A&M hadn't been in the Orange Bowl in 77 years. It's not like Texas A&M has been, celebrating championships left, right, and
Yeah.
center. They used to win the old Southwest Conference when R.C. Slocum was there. Half the league was on probation all the time. It's a good program with a nice history,
Mhm.
but they've been seeking something more forever, which is one of the reasons why they paid Jimbo Fisher a crap load of money.
Yeah, a lot of
Take
money,
that
man.
job.
Mhm.
Take a look at that. If you haven't seen the football stadium, Google it. It's
Oh, it's
ridiculous.
beautiful. Mhm.
It's awesome and ridiculous at the same time.
Mhm.
I love ridiculous when it comes to college football. I'm a big stadium guy.
Oh,
Never
yeah, for
been
sure.
there, would love to go there. But they're trying to validate themselves too. And they're trying to take that next step too. And they want to be a contender next year. So beating North Carolina, especially with a really good run defense, if they can slow Carolina's offense, they can make a statement, start off next year in a similar kind of way we were just talking about how Carolina might as
Mhm.
well. So these are two programs kind of in a similar sort of trajectory. Jimbo's been there a little bit longer, so he's had more time. They're also SEC, so it's kind of a
Yeah.
different culture. But they're meeting at this point right now.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of similarities. So I think both teams are going to be ready to play. I think both fan bases are going to really have high expectations for this game and be very interested. I don't think this is going to be one of those bowl games where somebody's flat and somebody's fired up and it's a rout. If it's a rout, it's because one team's just a lot better that night.
Mhm.
I don't think it'll be a rout. I think both teams will play well. I think the Tar Heels will be ready to go, provided that they have everybody, provided both teams have everybody. We don't know about opt-outs or anything like that.
It's a good
So
point.
this is a great opportunity for both teams.
It is.
North Carolina and Texas A&M haven't won a lot of major bowl games in their past.
No.
This is an opportunity for one of them to claim an Orange Bowl championship. And as Max said earlier today, somebody gets to have a ring, and that ring
Exactly.
stays with you the rest of your life. That's something significant to play for, especially when you're in a program that doesn't have a lot of rings.
Yeah, you're not lying about that, man. It's major accomplishment for this program. I think a major accomplishment for this team. And like we mentioned a lot in this podcast, it's kind of crazy what Mac Brown's been able to do in, just over 2 years and him coming back and just, kind of turning the program around. He said he wanted to get him to this point. He said that's what he was going to do. And so far
It's a precursor of things to come.
I know it really is, man. Especially when you look at how good recruiting's been. I mean, we just had signing day this week. I mean, you look at how good recruiting's been as well. I mean, even if Carolina doesn't win this game, this alone is going to help boost recruiting even more than it probably has been. So, I mean, it's just a big plus for the program in general.
You were at the Military Bowl last year. Do you remember the way Max sold that thing?
Yeah. Oh, he sold the heck out of it, man.
If you didn't know any better, you would have thought that was the Orange Bowl.
Yeah. And he made it feel like it.
That
Yeah.
was part of the process.
Exactly.
That was the next big step.
Mm-hmm.
Now, 12 months later, this is the next big step.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're going to hit a ceiling and not break through right now, a low ceiling. They're going to continue to ascend. I don't know if they'll ever get to where Clemson is or even remotely close to that, or even where Notre Dame is this year.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know if they're going to.
No.
But they're heading in the direction to find out.
Mm-hmm.
And this game is a big part of that.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if we've ever touched on this in camera. Real quick, I want to tell you all this before we wrap it up. I don't know if you remember after the military bowl game last year, we're interviewing the players under the kind of under the bleachers where the locker room was after the game. And I just remember how, like you said, it was just the military bowl. I mean, this team was barely finishing over 500, but the way in which they won that game, the importance that the program put into it. I mean, that was the happiest, I think it's probably one of the happiest locker room interviews I've seen from every kid we talked about. Everybody was smiling, having fun. You could just tell how juiced they were and how good they were feeling for winning a bowl game when in the grand scheme of things doesn't have a lot of significance. But for the program at the time, it meant so much. So that's one thing that's going to, kind of be disappointing about this year is obviously everything's going to be over Zoom and the post-game press conferences, whatever happens. But just getting to kind of see that human element of things and how important it means to these kids. I mean, that's something that's going to, and it's unfortunate about 2020 in general, but
we could do a whole Zoom. We could do a whole Zoom about that. Jacob, what you're describing is the Military Bowl was a trajectory game.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
This is another trajectory game.
Exactly. It's all about the process, man. We need to patent that. We need to trademark that, I think.
We call process, Mac call it phase. Same thing,
Yeah,
man.
exactly, man. It's a synonym. But yeah, Carolina, January 2nd, earning the Orange Bowl berth, playing number 5 Texas A&M down in Miami. That's an 8 p.m. kickoff. And obviously, leading up to that game, we'll have plenty of coverage on our YouTube channel and over at TarHeelIllustrated.com. As always, guys, AJ, thanks for joining me, man. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like this video. Be sure to share it. We'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.